eventually he hit me in my face. My husband committed suicide. So then I'm 24 years old at this time. I'm a domestic violence surviving widow.
Hello everyone, my name is Milica Krstic. I'm a psychologist, psychotherapist, and entrepreneur. And today we are speaking with one very interesting lady that I met yesterday. So basically, I decided to expand my series that I have on my Instagram channel where I'm talking about what's behind life, what's behind what you're seeing on social media. So today we're with Lou together from Gabon, but she lives in US. You'll be able to hear her story, basically what she's doing with her work, with her story and what happened to her and how she's helping now other women and support them. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for talking to me.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes. So you said I'm from Gabon. I'm born there. And when I was 13 years old, my family moved to the United States, and that's where I spent most of my life until recently going back to Gabon for a couple of years and learning even more about myself then.
Okay. So basically, you started something very big. I would like to hear if you feel safe enough to share your story and what happened and how you are basically decided to do that, because I think it's very rare to support that kind of sensitive part of women.
Yes. So, when I was just about 21 years old, I got married to, someone who was in the military. So, and for 2.5, a little bit under 3 years, we were married together. But about 9 months into our relationship, it started becoming a very abusive relationship. My husband struggled with mental health, with post-traumatic stress disorder. And so this was pretty much my marriage for the rest of it. The way that it ended was around January 2014. It was one of those episodes where he was just filled with anger and he couldn't hear me. And it was it's almost like he was seeing red. And then but it was one of those days where when you've been in a relationship where you've been giving all of your emotions to somebody, there are days where you're just tired. And even though the person is going through something really hard that day, you're just exhausted. And so something came out of me and I just told him, I guess you just don't care about me in the end. And I didn't realize that was going to trigger him the way that it did. And so that was the worst of all the abuse I've endured with him. It was the absolute worst. And eventually he hit me in my face and he broke my face. And that snapped him out of I was bleeding on the floor. That snapped him out of what was going on with him. He rushed me to the hospital. And, a month after that, I had to leave because it just wasn't a good safe space for me anymore. And I knew that, that could create more problems for my marriage. But unfortunately, what it created is that my husband committed suicide. So then I'm 24 years old at this time, and I am a domestic violence surviving widow. And it's crazy because, in widowhood, people can pity you. And sometimes by force, sometimes try to make a safe space in the way that they understand it for you. But when you're a domestic violence survivor, you get another kind of, people are more angry at you because the one thing that you hear about domestic violence survivors is that, why would you stay, or how could you not leave sooner? And so it was like navigating that space. I could not really find a place where I felt safe to communicate how I felt, because on one side, I really wanted just my life to start over. But then I felt like everybody expected from me to just be sad and miserable and broken. And, for 5 years, I managed the best that I could. I held on to my faith. And then 5 years after that, I decided that instead of letting other people tell the story for me, I was going to tell my story. And so this is when I decided to write, because for me, writing has always been very good therapy.
Thank you for sharing your story. So raw and so honest.
Thank you.
What kind of advices you received when everything happened? What kind of advices people were telling you when you were passing through that? Only you know how that felt, but what people were telling you?
So a lot of times people didn't like the fact that I went back to work so soon. They wanted me to take a break. I wanted to work. I wanted to focus on something else. People thought I was in denial because I was 24. I wanted to be out with my friends. I wanted to be just in a world that felt happy. And that's not what people wanted from me. A church leader one time kind of yelled at me and told me to go back to church. And that made me feel less safe about church. So for a good year, I didn't want to go back into a church. Yeah. And then people really told me to stop talking about it.
What kind of support system you had when you were passing through that? Who were there for you?
My mom tried her best. I have a personality that when I don't want something, you can't force me. So the way that my mom dealt with it is sit with me in silence. And I really appreciated that from my mom. Like, I don't think I ever actually thanked her for it, but so, and then it wasn't a real support, but maybe it was the people who didn't know anything. People that just met me after the fact, who didn't know that I was widowed, who didn't know that I was a survivor of abuse, because they just met my personality, who I wanted to be. Yeah, those guys. Specifically a friend of mine, my friend Taylor, she was a huge mirror for me of what my life actually was when someone doesn't look at you with pity. Yeah.
Okay, we are feeling some emotions here. I think that that's completely normal and healthy when we're talking about these kind of things.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. Really, it's so deep and it's so important. And what else I wanted to ask you? You survived that. You became a resilient woman who is now supporting other women passing through that kind of experiences. How you're supporting them?
My way of doing it is just telling them the truth. Because, you know, some people would ask me questions like, how do I make this feeling go away? And I say, I don't know. I don't know how the feeling goes away. I just know what you do to understand that this word, widowhood or domestic violence, you know, survivor, like that's not what defines you. And so I just teach them or tell them the ways that I go and put energy into the other things that define me. The things I'm passionate about, you know, whether it's traveling or cooking or meeting with friends or even my faith, like, because it's the way that I know to process it. And that's how it helped me. That's how it helped me. And it doesn't mean that they have to do the things that I do, but if they can find what other things define them, I tell them, then this is where the energy is going to go. Because for myself, I know that if I sit there and I just focus on the pain, I will just dig and fall deeper into the darkness of the pain. So for me, it was like, okay, what brings me joy? I'm going to put energy in that.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And what else I wanted to say at the end of this first episode of What's Behind, can you tell us a little bit about your book that you wrote? Because I think it's one part of your work is by offering people knowledge and experience through that book and sharing it with the world.
During those first 5 years, because I didn't really have a person to speak to, my outlet was writing in my journal. I would journal about the things that I would go through. And sometimes I would even go back to a journal and rewrite it because, you know, whatever I wrote that first year, on the third year when I would read it again, I would realize that I don't feel that way anymore. If you read journals from the first year, it's rage. I'm angry at everybody. I'm in the paper, I'm cussing them out. I'm saying the things that I wish I could scream in their face when they're saying things to me. And then by the year 5, so I got the great opportunity. A woman who had, you know, learned of me through her daughter invited me to a women's shelter with other battered women, and I got the chance to speak and tell my story for 15 minutes. That was the first time that somebody was asking the right questions, and it came from people who were themselves in pain, and I could answer them. And I remember a woman, so these women are no contact. They're so traumatized that you cannot touch them. And one of these women walked up to me and asked me if she could hold me. And she said to me, I think God sent you to answer my prayer. If you wrote a book, I would read it. I said, okay.
Let's do it.
I took my journals and I rewrote them. I picked 7 of them where I said, what tells this story in a way that I can keep something for myself that I still need to heal from? but what have I done? I feel I've done a good job healing here that I can share about. So I did 7 journals. I rewrote them. I told the story of my marriage. I told my relationship to men and love. I talked about my relationship with God. I talked about what I thought widowhood meant and what I realized after 5 years it actually means and it actually looks like. I also talked about how grief gets suspended in time for me, how I could have the most amazing year, then February rolls around. And even if I don't remember that the date of my husband's passing is coming, my body knows. And how like now I can remind myself today to plan for that.
And where people can order your book?
The book right now, if you have the Kindle app, it's free on Amazon. If you want a copy to have with you, it's $15.
I'm so grateful that we did this, really.
Thank you.
First time for me as well to do it in a public place, really. But yeah, thank you so much. And we will leave links to your profiles and your book so people can find it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.